Vulavnaka, and welcome back to Speak Your Mind. I'm Louisa Toranga. Now, in a couple of days, we observe World Day for Health and Safety at Work. This is a joint campaign with World Day Against Child Labor to improve the safety and health of young workers. So we're going to talk about that today. And with me in studio is Director Labor Standards, Mr. Tish Kumar. Also, Manager OHS Training, Chemical and Hygiene, Mr. Nawal Kishore. Good to have you here. Now, before we start, if you'd like to take part in today's discussion, you're most welcome to. The lines are open, 322-0906. That's the number to call. So let's dive right into it. Now, in a nutshell, if you can just help me understand the importance of occupational health and safety in the workforce or workplace.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I want to welcome all the listeners. Rightly mentioned, occupational health and safety. Occupational health and safety basically deals with the health and safety of all workers at the workplaces. We have got legislations that govern the employment of the workers in Fiji, and how health and safety affects those workers in their respective workplaces. So, in a nutshell, occupational health and safety just talks about how the workers are employed in the workplaces, and what are the roles and responsibilities of the employers, the duties of the employers, the duties of the workers, the duties of the supervisors, managers, and all stakeholders as far as the implementation of the Act is concerned. It focuses on a proactive approach to identify and solve problems, health and safety problems, hazardous situations, how you identify them, how you assess them, and how you solve those issues with the minimum supervision and cost involved. It also talks about improvement policies, the continuous improvement in the workplace, how you collectively, the employer and employee collectively target areas which are hazardous of nature, and how you improve those areas for the betterment of workers for this country.
Okay. When you say safety, how do you address this? Like, I think I talked to you about this earlier. Companies are coming up everywhere, and people need to work, and so some workers are underskilled, so they'll work in any kind of environmental condition. They won't report it, or maybe they're afraid to report it because they may lose their job and may not be able to find another job. So how do you address that?
Yeah, for occupational health and safety application of the Act, it applies to all workplaces except for certain limitations in the mining industry and the quarrying industry.
Right.
But in all other workplaces, the Health and Safety at Work Act does apply.
Why not mining and?
Because the mining and the quarries industries has got its looked after the Mineral Resources Department.
Okay.
So they have got their own legislative framework in which they deal with those types of complaints.
Okay.
So as far as health and safety, the application of the law is concerned, the health and safety legislation provides avenues of consultation. Having said that, for any workplace, they normally have health and safety representatives and committee members. For workplaces which have less than 20 workers, they are OHS representatives. The purpose of these representatives is to represent the workforce in regards to any health and safety issues that they have in the workplace.
Okay.
For the other part, where there are 20 or more workers involved in any workplace, they have a consultative mechanism which is the Health and Safety Committee. Now, the Health and Safety Committee has members of the management, which represent the employer, and also members from the workers. So one of those members who has been elected by the workers is the chairperson of the Health and Safety Committee, while the other members are in the Health and Safety Committee. And at any point in time, the number of people in any Health and Safety Committee shall not be less than 6. So what is the purpose of this committee? The purpose of this committee is to identify, address, and probably to control all health and safety problems of those workplaces. It can be any hazardous situation, it can be any problem to the workers, it can be any issues that has got implications on health and safety of workers. Now, if you look at the establishment of the committee, it has got the employer representative as well in the committee. So those employer representatives who are in the committee, they will have the power and authority to make decisions. And for health and safety committee meetings, it is a consultation process. It's a consultative mechanism where, for example, if all the workers cannot attend to the committee, that's why they have elected representative.
Right.
And all their grievances, they bring it to the health and safety committee. The health and safety committee will have a procedure of its own. When are they going to meet? What are the things they need to discuss? What are the issues that needs to be discussed? What are the recommendations that has been made? Who is supposed to do them? What is the time frame? What were the actions taken? All of these things is within the procedures of the health and safety committee, and it becomes a very amicable way to solve workers' problems as far as health and safety is concerned. On the outset, if the worker feels that his complaint or his issue or his problem has not been identified or raised in the health and safety committee, or if the worker feels that he is not part of the consultative mechanism which is laid within the workplace,
Right.
there is nothing stopping the worker to come and report directly the issue to the National OHS department. And then inspectors will carry out their investigation from there on.
Okay. When you say the committee that's been set up, the OHS committee, is there a session within the organization that they have with the staff, like the people, so that they understand why these regulations are important, why these safety procedures have been put in place? Do they have sessions with them? Or
Thank you very much. The ministry has got in its National OHS services a training and promotion unit which I lead. And the purpose of our unit is to provide awareness on health and safety and all the associate legislations. We also provide accredited training to health and safety committees and representatives. It's a 3-day training. Now, in that training, once you complete the training, it will give you all the requisites, all the details, all the requirements on how you establish a health and safety committee. That is also part of that program. And it will tell you how you elect the workers' representative, how employers' reps are nominated, and what are the resolutions, what are the procedures. The committee will determine its own procedures. However, there are certain things that the committee needs to make sure is that the health and safety committee shall meet at least once in 3 months. That is one of the requirements as per the regulations. And these meetings are to be held during working hours. These are some of the requirements. So having said that, once the training is provided, then we anticipate the organization to establish a health and safety committee. If it is not there, to establish one and to implement all the policies and procedures within the parameters of the legislation.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
You're on Speak Your Mind. We're going to be back after a short break. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. As we observe World Day for Health and Safety at Work, we look at the joint campaign. Well, this is we're joining the ILO for World Day Against Child Labor. So, Atish, you want to tell us more about that?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I think it's very important for us to understand in terms of the issues of young workers.
Right.
Of course, this year the World Day for Safety and Health at Work is also coming in conjunction with the World Against Child Labor. We're coming together to ensure that we create more awareness to workers and employers, and especially target young workers, to ensure in terms of their safety, their responsibility, what they're required to do, and how best we can address their concerns. Of course, we know that we have always ensured that we consult our youths, we consult the young workers, we consult everyone so that we can have better laws in place. And of course, with that in place, we have the World Day Against Child Labor that will be coming on 12th of June.
Right.
Of course, we also have the World OHS Day that will be that is, in fact, we have started with the celebration, and we're trying to create more awareness to workers and employers. When you look at the issues of child labor, I believe it's important for us to note that, like right now, we are in the 2-week school holidays.
Right.
And a lot of children will want to go and
Holiday job.
extra holiday job. They want to earn extra cash. Of course, when you look at the legislation requires, of course, the certain conditions are there. One of them, of course, is you must have you must have parental consent.
Right.
That means an employer should have parental consent or guardian's consent. Only then they can employ that particular child. The child has to be over 15 years of age if they are required to work or they're required to do some light work or non-hazardous work, work which might not have any impact on the health and safety of the child. And of course, the child can be employed. They must be paid the minimum rates of pay, and then of course, the child cannot be exposed to any kind of risk.
So what kind of work would that
like
be?
For example, if they're working in a shop, like job, in terms
Packers.
of packers,
Okay.
or sometimes you can see children are employed in their family business.
Right.
Like for example, when you look at they're just trying to help their parents, they're trying to help their guardians, and of course the other situations is where children are actually employed. Those who are 16, 17 years of age, they're actually employed in some of the these areas, especially when you look at in supermarkets. They're actually working, packing goods, and of course we've also seen that children are actually assisting in terms of some of these small garment factories. We can say that actually working in manufacturing areas. But these work should not be hazardous work. Should not in any way have an impact on the health and safety of a child. That's very, very important. Now, the issue in terms of child labor is what we are trying to do is to ensure that all children who are of school age, they must be in school. That's
Right.
first and foremost.
Yes.
The issue in terms of employment, of course, that is the secondary part. A child can be employed. They can be employed in terms of light work. But it doesn't mean that, when we say a child can be employed, a child can do any work. No. They have to, there are certain conditions. And parental consent is very, very important. Why I'm emphasizing on this, Lisa, is because a lot of times we see that parents are unaware that their children are actually working. And then something happens, and then they come to the authority and say that, look, I have not allowed my child to work in this particular employer, but this employer has gone ahead, or this company has gone ahead and employed my child. So it's very important for the employees and also for the business to be aware that if they are employing children, they must get the parents or the guardians' consent. There should be a written consent from the parents and guardians to ensure that this particular child is who is in employment has the consent. And of course, the other important point is you must check the birth certificate. The child should be over 15 years of age. If they want to work in this in school holidays, or if they want to work after school, but it should not have an impact on the education of the child. We do not want to see situations where a child is in employment and then later on it affects their schoolwork. What we have seen is that with the assistance provided by government in terms of free school tuition fees, and of course we have seen that school books are given. We have seen that all assistance are given to children. So it does not give any leeway for children to say, look, I will have to work because I'll have to earn from
my
bus
bus
fare, as
fare.
previously it used to happen.
Right.
But now we can see all assistance are given to ensure that we have a better Fiji. We have a educated educated youths. We have an educated population, and this is our goal, to ensure that we go towards this direction. And this is not only Ministry of Employment's responsibility or Ministry of Women's or anybody. It's everyone's responsibility.
Right.
It's everyone's responsibility to ensure that we protect our children. We must make sure that when our children are out in the field, of course, if they are out with their parents or their grandparents, or if they're out in terms of doing their work, there must be supervision, right?
Right.
A lot of the concerns have been raised where we can see that people are calling our minister asking, okay, what the child can do. For example, if they are in the family business, yes, they can assist their parents, they can assist their guardians, but they should be supervised. It's not that a child is just left on their own. That's the important point that we have to highlight. And we have got our inspectors on the ground. They are actually conducting inspections, creating awareness to employers, creating awareness to workers in terms of health and safety, in terms of the minimum terms and conditions of employment, what they're required to do. And very important is we want to ensure that no young worker gets into any form of accident, or no worker for that matter gets any form of accidents or gets injured at work.
Right. Atish, sorry, I just wanted to ask, we're talking about children, against child labor, and with OHS. So in schools, primary school level, is there anything in the curriculum that educates young children on this health and safety regulations and the laws and everything, and child labor? Because we all will go into school. We're in school, and we're gonna end up in the workforce. Whether you're sitting on 150 grand or on 5 grand, OHS applies. So you can't tell a worker. I mean, sometimes you find it really hard to tell workers, you don't do this, you don't do this. Tell me why. But if you educate the child, by the time they go into the workforce, the habit is built. So is there anything?
Yes. Thank you, Lisa. I think when you talk about child labor, from 2011, when the Ministry of Employment, together with the ILO and the European Union, we launched this project on child labor,
Right.
in child labor awareness campaign, and also the Employment Relations Act, when came into effect in 2008. It talked about, of course, in terms of child labor, in terms of what children can do, right, and what are the minimum age of employment. So when you look at the ILO Convention 138, it talks about minimum age. Convention 182 talks about worst form child labor. Those conventions are embedded in our law to ensure that we have a modern legislation, a legislation that is there, we are able to enforce it, and it's more practical. So with that in place, from 2011, under the European Union project on child labor, we have created awareness, we have trained teachers, so we have trained school students, we have trained community leaders, and we have also trained in terms of farmers, and ensuring that we go out to these communities and tell them what child labor is. And with that in place, in 2015, the interagency groups, with the assistance of course, the Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, we have signed an interagency guideline that talks about what we are required to do. The interagency committee has been formed at the ground, and what we are required to do.
Okay, thank you, Atish. You're on Speak Your Mind as we observe World Day for Health and Safety at Work. We're going to come back. We're talking to Atish Kumar and
Nawal Kishore.
Nawal Kishore. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. We're talking about World Day for Health and Safety at Work and also World Day Against Child Labor. There's a joint campaign for this year's celebrations, which is currently happening around the country. And with me in studio, Mr. Nawal Kishore, Manager OHS Training, Chemical and Hygiene, and Mr. Atish Kumar, Director Labor Standards. You were talking about interagency guidelines. If you can just share more about
thank
that.
You, Lisa. I think first we need to ensure that we advise our community members, and we are going down to the community members, telling them about child labor and telling them about what they can do. What they can do. When you look at the 2017 and 2018 budget, government has allocated more than $900 million towards education. That's a huge amount of money that has been put to the education sector. And we are very proud that this money is now. We can see that people are now benefiting from this. So in that we can see that we are also ensuring that no child is left in child labor, or no child is deprived from his or her educational right. That's already in the constitution. So what we are doing is we have formed, with the assistance of Ministry of Women, Children and Poverty Alleviation, in 2015 there was an interagency guideline on child abuse and neglect was signed, where the Ministry of Women will be there, Fiji Police Force, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Employment, and also Ministry of Health and Medical Services. So we have come together as an interagency group to ensure that if there is any issue of child labor that is involved, or any other issue for children, or child abuse, or any other issue, of course, it has to be in line with the guideline, and the agencies work together. We want to ensure that we work quickly. We need to ensure that we provide these responses, and also ensure that in terms of child labor, we withdraw these children from child labor, and then they return to school with the assistance of Ministry of Education. And we have seen that the divisional education officers have been coming on board. They have been assisting in terms of ensuring that we create awareness to the communities. And we've been going down to the communities. We have gone down to Tikina levels, to the advisory council levels. We have gone down to the religious groups. We have gone down to the schools, and we have also trained school teachers in terms of how to report a child labor case, how to report when they see that a child, is not coming to school and is involved in child labor. During school hours, no child can be in employment. No child. It's just a no. No child can be in employment during school hours. After school, children can assist their parents. Okay. That's after school. They can assist their parents. They can assist in terms of simple work, helping them in their farm, doing simple gardening work, or sometimes we see in terms of boarding schools. They assist in terms of there are school gardens. All
Right.
these things is allowed, right? But when you look at in terms of during school hours, we can see no child can be employed outside.
Yeah.
In terms of not going to school. And of course, if it's part of their school curriculum, of course that is that's what they do in terms of ensuring that the learning and development process. But what we want to advise members of the public is to please be mindful that not all work done by children is child labor. Right? For example, helping their parents, right? If it's after school, it's non-hazardous, it's not child labor. But if it's during school hours where it is affecting the teaching and learning process of the child, then of course it is a concern, right? And then we want to tell the members of the public, we want to tell everyone that please ensure that you try your best to educate our children, to ensure that they go to school. I think the primary goal here, Luisa, is we must send our children to school.
Right.
There should not be any excuse whatsoever.
No excuse.
Right? When you look at the amount of money that has been spent on education, the amount of money that has been spent in ensuring that these children go to school, I think there should not be any reason why we cannot send our children to school. With assistance coming in from all sectors of community, I think we should be able to have a better Fiji.
Right. The focus for this year's celebrations is on young workers. So why is that? Are they a high-risk group?
Thank you. It's a global theme for these celebrations, OHS vulnerability of young workers. Now, all across the globe, you will see, if you compare the statistics, or if you look at the statistics from the International Labour Organization, then there are a significant number of accidents, disease, or deaths that are taking place of young workers between 18 to 24 or 18 to 26. Now, ILO has come up with this theme of protecting young workers, simply because sometimes the young workers they just drop out from schools. Some of them just drop out from universities. However, if you look at in general, they are new workers,
Right.
and just because of their inexperience in the field of work. Maybe they are not in the right qualifications, but just because of employment, people choose other jobs. It's not really what the field of study is, but just to get revenue and to survive, people select other alternative jobs. And that's the second one. There is also, for example, for new workers, communication with their employers is an issue. They are hesitant, they are reluctant to raise issues, fear of being victimized. And these are some of the things that maybe the ILO or the global organization has thought about of young workers and how they are affected.
Right.
And secondly, the negotiation skills and the power to negotiate is also weak because they are new to the work environment,
Right.
compared to those that have worked for 5 years or 10 years or even more.
Right.
So these are some of the concerns, and these are some of the issues young workers generally face in workplaces. And some of them are, for example, for older workers, they go through on-the-job training, skills training, multi-skilling. They are employed within within a workplace. There could be many different departments, and they are exposed to their tasked around in many different departments. So they have a lot of skills. But if you are a new worker, then you will be confined to a particular job, and at that point in time, you won't know how risky or how hazardous this type of work could be. So these are some of the things that affects the workers. And if a worker who is not, who has just started work, and if he is not, like some are quiet workers, some are vocal workers, and they do voice out their concerns. But if you look at as far as employment is concerned, it goes for anybody. If you are a new worker, then there is a certain amount of silence that you have within you.
Scared, huh?
Yeah, the fear of maybe losing the job or victimization, and there are a lot of other things.
Right.
And then at the same time, you have started, you won't be provided with adequate training at that point in time, apart from the induction that you might go through.
Right.
So these are some of the things that is affecting the workers, especially the young workers, and this needs to be addressed to improve the situation globally.
Right. You mentioned young workers dying,
Yeah.
So, like the health side of OHS, before people in their 50s, 60s, late 60s, they were dying. But now we have workers who are like 28, 32, dying of heart attack. What are we doing about this?
Yeah, we are talking about when we go and do health and safety trainings, when you go and awareness, we talk about the 4 factors of the human health: the physical, the social, the mental, the spiritual, and all of those contribute to the person's health. So the situation is this: there's 2 things that should be considered. One is the workplace, and the other one is the person's health. If the workplace is not conducive, if the workplace is not good, then the person's health is affected, or the worker's health is affected. At the same time, if the worker's health is not good, he cannot perform at the workplace.
Right.
So that is how those 2 things are interlinked, and it will affect the other. One is the workplace environment, which could contribute to the ill health of the worker. At the same time, if the worker is not feeling well, then he cannot contribute to the work that he is supposed to do. And that is how they are related. And there are other factors like psychological problems are there. Stress is one of those. Physical capabilities of workers. So these are some of the things.
In a bit.
Thank
Yeah?
you. Yeah.
I'd like you to talk more about that, but right after this. You're on Speak Your Mind. We're going to be back after this short break. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. In studio with me, Mr. Nawal Kishore, Manager OHS Training, Chemical and Hygiene, and Mr. Atish Kumar, Director Labor Standards. We're talking about World Day for Health and Safety at Work. So, we were talking about the health side of it.
Yeah. Thank you. Just like what I had mentioned earlier, to control workplace problems. One was that I was talking about the health part and the workers part plus the workplace, how they contribute to each other. So basically, what the ministry is trying to achieve is trying to promote a healthy and safe working environment. And some of the things that we promote is about safe workplaces, productivity-driven workplaces, how workers can contribute to the improvement of their workplaces. At the same time, the employer also has a role to play to provide the workers with a safe and healthy workplace. Now, if the ministry's aim is to promote safe and healthy workplaces, and we ask the employers to provide a safe working environment, how they can do that is that they need to identify all the areas that affects the workers' health and safety. If you look at the previous, in the past years when the health and safety legislation was not there, then most of the accidents and injuries that used to take place, then we normally used to blame the victim. We don't actually identify the process, the gaps in the process, or the contributing factors. To tell you something about accident and ill health, normally for one particular accident to occur, there could be about 10 or 20 or 30 or more than that contributing factors that contributes to accident. Now, what the ministry is trying to promote is that to be proactive, and we can to do that, we need to identify those contributing factors that contributes to an accident. And remember, that accident could lead to a death of a worker. So therefore, our strategy is to promote, to provide awareness, to provide training, to reduce all of those hazards. And having said that, you might know that there are a lot of hazards in the workplace. However, there are certain hazards that affect some people. It might not affect others. And when the inspectors go and carry out the assessment, one of those things that they consider when assessing a hazard is exposure. How many people are exposed to those types of hazards? The second one is that the severity of the hazard, how severe the problem is. And the third one is human differences. There could be some hazards, biological hazards or other hazards, it could affect some people. And it might not affect others. For example, the tolerance level for stress levels of workers. Some of the workers, having said, I want to say that if they are under stress, they perform really well. However, for some workers, if they are stressed, then they have adverse health problems. They might end up into hospital. Then they might have problems with with the body systems and all of these things. So this is how the ministry addresses this issue. If we get a report that there is a health and safety problem, then the inspector, they will do their investigation, they will carry out their assessment in this nature. How people are exposed, what is the nature of exposure, what is the severity of the hazard, what are the consequences, what can happen. So these are the things the ministry is trying to achieve.
That assessment.
Assessment part.
That's really interesting, because I always thought, that's a hazard. Shut it down, but no.
because
Doesn't work like that.
Yeah, so that is how the ministry approaches the workplaces to improve. And then we have got other services where we have provide consultancy services as well on workplace hygiene, on workplace safety, on safety engineering. We do statutory engineering inspections. We do certify plants and machines and equipments. We'll do building inspections. So these are all the functions of the ministry which we undertake under the health and safety for the implementation of the legislation.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Nawal. Atish, for child labor, World Day Against Child Labor, one of the SDG goals is to eliminate child labor by 2025, which is what, 7 years away?
Yes.
So how is that going?
Yes, thank you, Lisa. I think it's very important for us to understand in terms of the SDG goal. What we have done, in fact, the Honorable Minister for Employment on the 16th of November last year has signed a declaration in Buenos Aires, Argentina, that is actually set the platform for the Ministry of Employment and also for our government in terms of ensuring that we eradicate all forms of child labor by 2025. And with that in place, we are also working in terms of the action plans. And we also have action plans, and we also have the modern legislation, the Employment Relations Act. We already have noted and seen that there is a major reduction in the child labor cases. For example, from 2011 up till 2018, we have received about 200 cases. And then we have a mechanism in place. Like, for example, when a child is withdrawn from child labor, then the child is referred to the relevant department in terms of, for example, going back to school. We go to the relevant district education office. They assist the Ministry of Women and Children. They come in to assist. And then we send the child back to school. So our main goal is not to have children in child labor or not to have children in employment, but to be in school. And that's the main goal that the ministry, and of course our government, has to ensure that we go in and we assist these children. And what we have seen is that with this in place, with the mechanisms in place, in terms of the interagency guidelines, in terms of the awareness that we have created, we have reduced the number of child labor cases. However, what we have also seen is we have created more awareness to employers and workers in schools to understand what child labor is. Like I said, not all work done by children is child labor. For example, assisting their parents, after school, right, in a non-hazardous environment is not child labor. Right? So sometimes I think people have the misconception that any work children do is child labor. No. Any work children do, of course, if it's during school hours and the child is not sent to school and the child is involved in any of the work, of course that is child labor, because that is depriving the rights of a child to be in school. So in terms of our plans, we are also implementing the issues in terms of the child labor inspection process, where we go out and we create awareness, we conduct inspection for employers, and of course educate workers. We are also taking, for example, those employers who fail to observe the regulations, we are also taking them to the employment tribunal. So that is, of course, the matter is taken before the tribunal for adjudication purpose, where we see that the employer is not complying with their laws.
Right. Okay. We're going to come back in a bit. We're talking to Mr. Atish Kumar and Mr. Nawal Kishore, and this is on World Day for Health and Safety. By the way, if you're gonna, your child is planning to do a holiday job around this time, you might want to note this down: 15 years above, and you better give your consent and keep supervising them. You're on Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. I'm Louisa, and with me in studio, Mr. Atish Kumar and Mr. Nawal Kishore of the ministry. So we're going to talk about this year's celebrations. This week. It's going to be in the West.
Yes, thank you. Just for your information, we have already had one of the celebrations in the Northern Division. It was last week on Friday. We have concluded that celebrations, and there was a huge turnaround. And we had about 100 guests who came for the celebrations.
100 guests?
100 guests for the celebrations. And we had some presentations from the ministry, including some panel discussions in regards to workers' issues, health and safety problems. There were also secondary school and tertiary school students, plus young workers who had problems or who might encounter problems in future. So they had some questions and answer sessions as well in the program. The final celebrations will be having it in the major celebrations for this year will be in Lotoka, which will be held on Thursday, the 26th of April. Of course, the chairperson, the chief guest will be the Honorable Minister, and we have scheduled some programs such as oratory contest and other programs for the participant as well. The tripartite is involved. The International Labour Organization is there. The Fiji Employees Federation is there. The Fiji Trades Unions Congress is there as well, because they are part of the National OHS Advisory Board. So they will also be participating. We are also having a march to begin the celebrations in Lotoka City on the 26th, followed by the main celebrations at the Sugarcane Growers Hall in Lotoka. And all the stakeholders, all the industries, all the employers in the Western Division have been invited. They can send in their representatives, workers, and they can come and participate. There could be some issues of workers they need to discuss. They might be facing some problems which they find it difficult to discuss in their workplaces. So the ministry's inspectorate will be there. The senior executive of the ministry will be there on the day of the celebrations,
Right.
and to assist the workers and promote health and safety at work for that particular day. And that is what we are gearing up towards now, towards the main celebrations. And of course, then we'll be having a national conference on 27th, which is at the Pearl, which is jointly organized by the Fiji National University. So that will conclude the week's celebrations on World Day for Safety and Health at Work. What I'm trying to emphasize here is that this is a one-time opportunity for workers to come and learn about what are the implications of if the workplace is not good, what are some of the issues that they face. If they want to ask any questions in regards to the legislation, we'll also talk about what the ministry is trying to do at this point in time. The ministry is doing reviewing some of its legislations. The ministry is also drafting some new regulations. So there would be some discussions on them, and we are asking the workers, the employers, to come and support and contribute to the success of the celebrations for the year 2018. At the same time, we are also trying to promote the ministry, especially the National OHS Service. And that's the reason why we have included tertiary school students, secondary school students, vocational students as well in our program. Because if you look at in the next 2 or 3 years, then these are the students who will be in the workplace. And they are the ones who will be exposed to any or whatever types of hazards or whatever type of workplaces they will need to go. So we assume, or we believe, that this is the right time for them to know how they could tackle these issues in the workplace, because they will be new. They might have problems here, like they might have lower bargaining power, they might have lower communication skills, they might not have enough training. So our ministry is trying to put in strategies or policies for these young people. Whilst they go in the workplace, what are some of the things they should look into for the improvement of health and safety in the workplace? So that is basically what the ministry is trying to do. And we all know that the younger generation is very sensitive. At the same time, they are bound to make mistakes. They are bound to be in hazardous workplaces. There could be scenarios or circumstances where they might not be following all the procedures for any workplace. So it will depend on the nature of work that they are doing, which might contribute to very severe or accidents or even death. So that is what the ministry is trying to prevent. And that is the main focus of the ministry. We do not want to see any young workers, getting hurt or getting injured or dying at the workplaces, because they are the ones who will be contributing to the economy of this country in years to come. So these are some of the activities the ministry has identified, and this is what our focus will be for this year's celebrations.
Right. Okay. Since we're on the last segment and wrapping things up, Mr.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Of course, just an advice to our young workers and of course to our children that this is school holiday, and please enjoy your holiday. At the same time, look after yourself, and we do not want to see any of our young workers who get injured or who are exposed to these kinds of working conditions. They can always come to our Ministry of Employment. We urge all the parents, the guardians, if they want any information, they can come to Ministry of Employment, and we are here to provide advice to them. We're here to conduct training for them. If the communities want training on terms of health and safety, they want training in terms of Child Labor or Employment Relations Act, they can always visit the nearest employment office, and we will organize trainings for them. We want to ensure that we go around right to the community level. We go down right to these communities to ensure that they know about the law. Because once they are empowered, once they know, it will be very easy for us to enforce these legislations.
Right. Just a question. What happens to a child, let's say, is less than 15 years old and is caught working?
Yes, in terms of those who are between 13 to 15 years, they can be employed in family-oriented business.
Yeah. So, but just say they.
Yeah, but if they're not employed in a family-oriented business, of course, the ministry goes in. We take the necessary step in terms of ensuring that we withdraw the child. At the same time, we advise the employer, and if there's serious concern, of course, the employer can be taken to task.
Oh, and the parents?
And of course, we also create awareness to the parents in terms of what they are trying to, what they should do, in looking after. And of course, we also have, we also work with the Ministry of Women and Children in terms of ensuring that we tackle this problem of child labor.
Okay. So that's it. You're on Speak Your Mind. On our show today, we're talking about World Day for Health and Safety at Work, as well as World Day Against Child Labor. Thank you, Mr. Kishore and Mr. Kumar. It was good having you here today, and thank you for sharing more about that. So, again, it's the school holidays, and if your child is going to be working, make sure you supervise them. They have to be 15 years plus. I'm Louisa Torano. You're on Speak Your Mind. Thank you for joining me today.